All right, everybody. For this episode, we have Aaron from Era Baits coming on, and he's going to be talking about some of the new stuff that he has going on, as well as talking about his tried and true bait, the Era Baits Tiny Glide. This bait is so cool. Caught a lot of trout on this bait already. Well, we're going to be talking to Aaron about running a small business, how he came up with this bait, and just all around fishing. So I hope you enjoy this episode.
Yep, Aaron, and you're Wyatt, right?
I'm Wyatt, yeah. And
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
yeah, nice to meet you as well. I'm pretty excited to talk. Like, dude, I bought your bait and then went out and have been fishing it on my BFS setup for trout. And it's been killing it.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I was just trout fishing a couple days ago and having a blast with it. It's a really fun bait for trout.
Yeah, and you're from New York State, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like what's the fishing like near you?
Um, well, it. I'm biased, but it's awesome. It's we have, I mean, excellent smallmouth fishing, great largemouth fishing, and this time of year, coming into fall, the trout fishing is what I'm going to be doing most. Um, Salmon, steelhead,
hmm
that's something I really enjoy too.
Okay, and so like the area you're at with is it so fishing for trout and salmon, steelhead, whatever. Um, is that more of like a stream creek setup, or how are these fish setting up? Like lake fishing?
Yeah, so Lake Ontario is the lake I live near. I live in Rochester, so um, in basically the whole winter, starting in the fall, going through the spring, you get big steelhead, brown trout that make their migration up the tributaries, and it it's an excellent opportunity for anglers to just go out and catch some incredible fish. Um, and People usually target them on the fly. They will also, fish a float rig, a center pin. But I've been having a blast the last couple of years, throwing some really finessey hard baits,
Mm-hmm.
tiny crankbaits, little glide baits like the one I make, and having a blast catching them that way.
Oh, sweet, dude. Yeah, cause I like when I got started into BFS, like I built my rod at the beginning of the year. You know, I still had like snow and ice on the ground, and
Mm-hmm.
then I seen your bait um from a video that I watched of raw fishing,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like, "That's sweet," and I was like, "Well, I also want to like get a Gancraft 70." So I got a Gancraft 70, and then I got your tiny glide, dude. But I tell you what, I prefer your glide over this 70. So like an issue I had with this, and I fish pretty fast. I fish pretty like aggressively.
Sure.
Um, is like the 70 tends to like want to roll over on me.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then versus yours is like super stable. You can like fish this pretty fast and or like really slow it down. For like me, I really slowed it down when I was trout fishing and
Mm-hmm.
gave it some like twitches and pauses, and they would just demolish it on a pause.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's so I've never actually fished the Gancraft, but I watched some videos when I was getting, and actually I'll start with a story about how I actually created the Tiny Glide and where it all started. And a couple years ago, like I'm a bass fisherman first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
but a couple years ago, because we get cold winters and the bass stop biting, or we have ice on our lakes. A couple of years ago, I decided, I'm going to try fishing for trout, little stocker trout in these little streams by me, and I just enjoy the bass techniques, fishing swim baits, fishing jigs. So I would take my really ultralight setups and go out and do the same techniques for bass, just downsize everything. And so it's actually designed for current. It's designed for little streams, and that's why I wanted it to be really stable in the current. And those flat sides help a lot with that thin body and those flat sides. Um, but yeah, that was the goal. So I'm glad we got that.
Yeah. So like, how did your fishing like all start? Did you grow up fishing?
Yeah. I've been fishing since I mean, since I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
I really took off around in high school. That's when I caught the bug, and I would, I'd be in high school and in math class or whatever, and have my computer pulled up with Bassmaster, and trying to get away with that, um, just because I'd wake up early and make my mom take me to pond, and uh, that's really when I started getting into it a lot. And then um, the last couple of years, I've been into bass fishing. I mean, I fish kayak bass tournaments in New York. They have a really awesome trail here. Um, but I've been also getting into different species, just trying to broaden, everything I know about fishing. That's what interests me.
Mm-hmm. No, I was the same way. I was like in high school, have my laptop pulled up, be looking at Tackle Warehouse, and
Yep.
then there was like this hack that we kind of had. It wasn't like that sophisticated, but we could like get into YouTube and like watch YouTube videos, watching John B and some of them guys.
Yep.
Um, no, that's awesome, dude. And then, so like, how did you get into like BFS then, and then, creating this lure?
Yeah, it was kind of a natural progression to me for me. I mean, I like finesse fishing a lot. Um, everybody's got to finesse fish at some point, and I've gotten good at it. So, um, I really wanted to basically fish the regular techniques, just be able to catch any size fish. Like I wanted to be able to fish a glide bait and just be able to catch panfish, because that's just something that's fun to me. I don't really care. One of the things that I think I sell to a lot of people in places where there aren't famous fisheries or anything, and these people are just going to little creeks and little ponds, and to be able to experience the same type of fishing as people are, you know, fishing giant glide baits in California or Texas or whatever. I think that's the beauty of BFS fishing. I think that's the fun part.
Oh, for sure. And like, what drew me to it is we have so like here where I'm at in like South Dakota in the Black Hills, super underrated like trout fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this past Saturday, I went out with my buddy at this lake that we were having really good success at, and his 6 year old caught a 20 and a half incher like first 10 minutes of fishing. I just like kind of set the tone for our day. We just like clobbered them at this lake. The crappy part was I was like in such a hurry to like pack stuff up and get going because I had a little bit of a drive, and I forgot this because I wanted like he fly fishes, but he like I think I'm getting him into BFS a little bit. It's kind of curious about it, but I forgot this and I forgot like a couple other things that I wanted to throw, and I was like, oh man, I was just like a little disappointed, especially since a couple weeks ago when I was out at that lake, I caught my first tiger trout on this bait, and so that was really cool. And like I said,
That's sweet.
I've just been messing up the trout on this. I did break a hook though, so that's why the hooks are off. I got to replace them, but
Yeah,
already rashing this bait up a little bit.
yeah, for sure. They come with really light wire. They come with good hooks. They're Ichikawa hooks,
Mhm.
um, but they're really light wire. So if you wanna size up the BKK makes the spear treble. That's a little heavier, and then owner the ST36 is even heavier than that. And I use all of them for just whatever I'm fishing for.
Yeah, so I tried to like steal some hooks off of a little Rapala, little crankbait, and I
Mm-hmm.
threw them on while we were out there. And it just changed the action so much. I was like, I, and they were a lot heavier hooks. I just didn't like how it was swimming though after I put them on. So, uh, definitely we'll have to get some smaller hooks. But I also really like the split rings that you put on. Split rings were great.
Yeah, yeah. I did a lot of work trying to find the perfect terminal. And the split rings I think are decoy light class
Mm-hmm.
split rings, and then the snap is the decoy V snap. And it all just makes the bait work perfectly. It's perfect size for the lure.
Yeah. So on your Instagram, I see you went to Row to
Mhm.
help you with this bait, but so when you were creating it, did you carve it out or like how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, yeah. I started with a carving. I mean, this was 2 years ago, and it's kind of fun to think back. I was working at it. Working as a dishwasher in a restaurant, and I'd come home, and it'd be late night, and I'd just be sitting in front of the TV carving this tiny little piece of cedar, you know, basically just onto my bed, just like I'm gonna make this lure just for me. I At that time I wanted it just for myself, um, and just to be able to go out and catch little trout on a glide bait because I thought that would be really cool. And I'm like, well, I'll put some online because somebody else out there will think like me. Probably not a lot of people, but somebody else will think like me, and they'll buy one, and I'll make a couple bucks. And it took off way quicker than I expected. And I mean, I got to give a huge shout out to Row Innovations for basically changing the resin swim bait industry. Just because so much wouldn't be possible without their technology and what they do with their molds. I mean, it would take me so much longer to remake molds, and I would have to charge so much more for each lure. And since it's such a small lure, it's not something I want to do.
No, exactly. And like with everything with and making silicone molds, I've made a handful at this point and it's not easy at all.
Yeah,
Especially like Row can like set you up to make it a lot easier so you can just put um, your hook hangers,
yeah.
everything in there and just mold it. So like how long does it typically take you to make one of these?
Um, Before Row Innovations, I would make about 10 of them a week, honestly,
Mhm.
which is not really a good way to make a living. If, have to charge so much if I was only making 10 a week. Um, Now I can produce a lot. There is still plenty of demand. They sell out really quickly.
Mhm.
So I've been really working a lot on production, and it's a hard thing. And it takes a lot of time to I've actually gone and I've redeveloped the molds a second time recently just to add some new technology to speed up production. And you know just you know, basically just to be able to get more people this lure. I
Mhm.
enjoy the stories. I enjoy um, you know I don't enjoy when people are like, I can't get the lure. I'm like, I'm putting a lot of time into it. You won't you're It's hard to get them right now, but in a couple months, and especially a couple years, you'll be able to get them no problem because I'm working on it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and that's like what a lot of small bait makers experience, especially if So you have this lure, you have this product that's really good, works really well, and super great multi-species lure. I think I've seen peacock bass caught on this lure,
Hmm.
and then you have people catching just monster trout on it as well, and then bass and everything in between. So you have like something that's a proven fish catcher, and everybody wants it. I know I was really wanting this for a long time, and because of my work schedule and how you do your drops, it was like, oh shit, I'm working during that time. And so this last drop that you had, where I was able to get two of the bone ones, but I got
Hmm.
cart robbed twice because I tried to get a shad and then wasn't able to get one, and then I just tried to get some blanks, and then I was like, I'll just paint them. Wasn't able to get them, so I got these bones, and the bone has been working really good,
Hmm.
and I was able to get two, and I am gonna paint one. Probably paint this one that I've already kind of rashed up and everything.
Yeah, I hear you. That's my least favorite part of it is doing the drops and having people message me that they can't get lures. I just that's part of the reason I don't do a lot of social media right now because I
Hmm.
already have a following of people who will buy up my lures, even though I have 2,000 followers on Instagram. That's enough people who really want my bait, so I don't actually need to do that much posting. Uh, I just want to get the people who want them their lures.
Hmm. Well, and then I think like the drop is the way to go versus like a pre-order or anything like that.
Yeah.
Uh, just because with the drop, those baits are available like instantly. If you get one, you get one. Versus like a pre-order, you run into issues with uh, people messaging you like, "Is it done
Yeah.
yet? Is it done yet?"
Yeah, there's that, and I don't think people would understand how far I'd be booked out with pre-orders.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's, I personally, I think I'd wanna take a chance every month versus, say pay now and have it a year later. I just think the drops are the way to go.
So, how many baits are you typically able to produce for a drop?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's grown a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's grown probably since the beginning of the year when I first started using the Row Innovations mold. And it's tough because there's over 20 steps into making a I mean you're a lure maker, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many steps into making one lure. And each one of those has to go really smoothly. And if one little thing, stops working well, or you have a problem with paint or clear coat or something, you end up wasting a lot of time. You end up ruining lures, and basically I've been doing that all year. So I've gone from having the first 100 baits I made. I don't even know if I used because I screwed up something along the way. You know, it was just like these are not up to the standard that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've gone from probably about 50, just 50 lures per drop, and I've probably um, quadrupled that over the course of the last couple months, and I really, I just work alone right now. I would love to get a part-time employee, just someone who enjoys fishing as well,
Mm-hmm.
uh, making lures, and I have. Yeah, I'm 23. And I'm just starting, so I have big
Yeah.
plans for Arabates, and I've got tons of more lures um, in the works, and tons of ideas for production, and I'd love to be able to get them on online retailers and local stores and all that stuff down the road. I think that would be awesome.
Let's segue into that, like new lures. So you just like on your Instagram, you just shown the tiny swimmer that you have coming out,
Got it
and
right here.
that looks sick, dude.
Yeah,
And it's the same size as
it's the
this.
same exact size. It's got one extra joint that just, it's got different internally. It's different. It's weighted internally. It's different, but
Hmm.
that one extra joint gives it a completely different action. And it's a really cool little lure. I've been having really fun. If somebody doesn't like fishing a glide bait, and I love fishing a glide bait because I like to watch that little thing twitch back and forth. But if you just want to cast and retrieve, it swims like just a little minnow. Like it looks awesome, and they crush it. It's an awesome bait.
So like, how do you like to fish that? Are you just like you said, just like a straight retrieve, or are you like twitches and pauses?
Um, I You can do a straight retrieve. I like to mix things up. So I've been doing a stop and start. It's really, you can burn it really quickly. It's really stable. I like when I'm chasing, feeding fish that when they're blowing up on fit, tiny little bait fish. That's when I'll throw this thing and just burn it across the surface, and that's a really super fun bite. I've been kind of it's weird to say, but I've been um, experimenting with kind of a walking technique that um, basically I'll retrieve the lure. I'll be walking the lure underwater, and what this does, instead of twitching back and forth like the tiny glide, it'll kind of swim a couple feet one way and then swim a couple feet the other way. So it kind of has a weird little um, like swimming like in a Z back and forth if you just kind of do the walking motion with your rod. So I've been experimenting with that a little bit. That's kind of cool, but it just you can burn it. You can swim it slowly. It has a really natural slow swim. If you can count it down if you're fishing deeper water and just really slowly swim it. So it's a really versatile lure, just like the tiny glide.
Hmm. No, definitely. Like I seen that and I was like, crap, I need that one too. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm glad I got that announced before this, so I could talk about it because I'm excited about it. It's gonna be
Oh,
a
for
really
sure.
cool bait.
Well, I think like different scenarios and applications. Just that swimmer will work maybe better than the tiny glide would in certain scenarios. I know one of the places that I'm really looking to like try this out is we have this small creek, and typically there's just like smaller brook trout or whatever. But I did
Mhm.
move like a 15-inch brook trout from like under, came out from under the bank, looked at my lure, and then went back in. Just didn't want it. And so there's like moving water, everything like that. This fall, I think will be really good to try to like target that fish if it's still there. Um, just like having them be more aggressive, for spawn and everything. But like, so my plan is to just like cast it in and then some tiny glides and just pausing it. And
Yeah,
I think that's going to be killer.
yeah. That I designed it to have a very slow sink, and I get a lot
Hmm.
of messages like your bait sinks too slow, and I'm like, I designed this for inches of water if you wanted to fish it in that,
Yeah.
and you can totally count it down. Um, but it really is designed because I like the visual part of it. That's part of
Hmm.
the fun to me. I like to be able to see that thing swimming or walking on right underneath the surface. Like, um, I I don't want to say too much. Actually, I'm coming out with it pretty soon, but I do have a little bit of a an accessory for the both the swim baits, and
Oh,
it's a it's a tiny little tungsten weight system. So I'll I'm gonna post this so soon, so I'm just gonna show you.
mm-hmm.
So on the bottom of the lures, on the tiny glide and the swimmer, there's little pinholes
Yeah.
at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I redeveloped the molds with Row Innovations to include into the lure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also going to sell an accessory that's a very small tungsten weight with a little pin coming out of it. So you can insert the little pin into that tiny little pinhole in the bottom of the lure, and the tungsten has a little adhesive on it, so it sticks right up in there. And really, I want it to be a very precise way of weighting the lure to get it down a little bit deeper. And that might be difficult to understand. So for anybody watching, just go to the Instagram. I'm probably going to post it in the next couple of days, some pictures of it and how
Yeah,
it
yeah. Well, and if you have one, like I'm looking at mine right now, and I'm seeing the little pinholes underneath, but
yeah.
that makes total sense to me, and I'm just thinking of applications for myself. So we have some really deep reservoirs that are crystal clear. You can see like 20 feet down. And so you see these huge trout just cruising. And
Uh-huh.
to be able to cast this out and get it down to them faster to be able to work it will just be killer. Plus, I don't like. So when I see your drops, I notice you don't. It doesn't seem like you do a ton of painting. I feel like painting smaller lures is a little harder, but when I paint this, I'm probably gonna paint like a neon green or yellow like
Mhm.
tracer on top just so I can still see it when I'm working it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I when I do paint, and I gotta just be honest, I'm not the best painter. I'm not very
Yeah.
good at the airbrushing, and I gotta learn. I gotta talk to other painters, and probably I will end up getting some of them custom painted by other painters, just because I got a lot to learn there. I try to do all the colors lighter colors. That's just what I would want for myself. Something
Hmm.
that's fun, because you can if you put a black back on it, you can barely see it in the water. And it's like, I don't know. Like, the cool part is being able to see it walk back and
Oh,
forth or swim.
oh, for sure. And like your paint schemes, like they're super simple. They have scaling. It's like one
Mhm.
color, but it's like if you have, I was trying to get the shad color last time, and it was kind of like just brown or whatever. It's like that's ambiguous to like a lot of different forage items,
Yeah.
and and you have the pink ones. The pink ones are sweet, but like, cause like, so I kind of get into the mindset like, oh, I need something painted, or I needed this color, or that color for whatever, and I was just fishing this straight bone like this, and was getting crushed a lot of different places, a lot of different like stained water, clear water. I was getting hammered.
Yeah, I mean, even if I do paint up baits, I always use the bone. I like it. I like the matte, the more, not the glossy finish on it. Um, I like the way it gets chewed up and sun baked, and how it looks after a while. It gets
Mm-hmm.
like yellowy. It's just a super confidence color for me. Everything eats it. It's just it looks cool. It's I mean, um, just looks really clean.
Oh, for sure. And like, I don't know how many trips out I have on this bait already, but yeah, it's already there's like some teeth marks in the resin, and Like there's a good fair bit of like hook rashing
Hmm.
and everything, but yeah, it's just like adds to the bait. It's just like adds that, hey, this bait gets bit.
Yeah, yeah. I love that about the resin swim baits. I mean, compared to the the plastic ones, the mass produced ones, I think it's pretty safe to say they often have a much better action. And I also love seeing them beat up. They won't last as long. I mean, they'll it's like they'll get chewed up because they're a softer plastic. When you mix resin with micro balloons, it's much softer than just a hard plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that's just part of the fun. I love seeing the lures, the resin lures that are just so beat up.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Well, and then that was my thing with this bait is when I do paint it, I'm like, what's gonna be like the best clear coat for this? Like how am I gonna do that? So we have you know, so it's not gonna affect the action, change it up too
Mm,
much, because it doesn't need to be like super thick or anything.
right.
Would I be able with painting this? Would I be able to punch that pin out and remove this, or is it glued in?
It's glued in. You probably won't be able to get that pin out.
That's all right. I'll just tape up the joint then.
Yeah. I will say I do a spray clear coat. It's such a tiny lure you can't dip it.
Mm-hmm.
So I spray the clear coat, and it is a nightmare to spray clear coat on a lure that small.
Yeah.
It's you have to be so. I mean, it can be so inconsistent. It's really hard to get it perfect, and it has taken a lot of practice to be able to produce the amount of lures I can just for spraying clear coat alone. It's so difficult.
Well, and then just like painting a bait this small is difficult in and of itself because you have, we're talking glides and everything. So you have like pretty standard
Yeah.
glide. You got a negotiator. For those, if you're not watching this, is a Roman made negotiator. It's in this yellow perch color, and there's detail in it. You got uh flake all over, but then you got green fading into gold, fading into the white, a little bit of orange on the belly. But painting something like this is painting a bigger lure is easier. I feel like you can get detail in a lot better, and then
Mhm.
also like clear coating this is a lot easier. But yeah, with I haven't painted a lure this small, so it's gonna be. I mean, I'll have pictures up, but it's gonna be interesting to say the
Mhm.
least because you know, doing a because I maybe want to try to do a trout pattern on it, like a little juvenile, like rainbow.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be difficult. Probably gonna have to like really plan it out because stuff like this is easy. Do you throw like bigger glides like this? Not that this is huge.
Um. I the only two glide baits I've ever fished besides the tiny glide is the S Waver, the middle
Yeah,
size, and the Shine Glide, the smaller size, the
yeah.
Sedge Glide. Those are the only two I've ever fished. I
Yeah,
love the Shine Glide. It's awesome.
yeah.
That's kind of why I like the flat sides of this. I like the um, that quick darting action. I know a lot about glide baits. I know what I I personally would like or not like in a lure. Like I don't like the river to sea one as much for the same reason I don't think I'd like the Gancraft 70 because it's wide and it does just sure it still catches lots of fish. It's just not what I have confidence in a quick darting, glide bait.
Mm-hmm. No, my buddy, uh, he's Spice Camp Fish on YouTube. He also lives in New York. He lives in, I think, like Long Island or something. And same thing. Like we were talking on my podcast, and he was like, just the S waiver is just garbage. But that's like the entry level glide that a lot of people get into versus, there's a lot better options out there. But yeah, the S waiver is, you can get into a lot better baits spending a little bit more money. You can even find these negotiators for really good prices if you are just patient and look.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, like with the Gancraft 70, because I was really excited to get it, and I've caught trout on it and whatever. But I think if I took um like the lead strips, and I think if I weighted it differently so it's a little heavier, I think I could get it more stable and fish better because yeah, it just like has a tendency to like even like trying to slow it down, you have to be really precise with your inputs because
Yeah.
it rolls over, which I don't know, maybe isn't a bad thing, but it's not something that I
Yeah.
want really.
And the thing is, the hard part with a plastic lure that's that small is you only have so much air in that cavity to give it buoyancy,
Mhm.
and you can get so much more buoyancy out of resin especially when you get that tiny. Um, you have to be careful because obviously you can't add too much micro balloons to your mixture. It gets really soft. But you can get a lot more buoyancy out of resin, and that I think that's one reason that it makes it really much better.
Yeah. If you get too much micro balloons, it's gonna just be way softer. But I mean, I haven't smacked this into any rocks or anything yet, so I'm pretty happy about
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, when I started doing them, the first couple ones I made just for myself had way too much um, micro balloons, and you could just, I mean, that tail is really thin, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you could just take it with your hands and snap it.
Yeah.
Now you can't do that because I've perfected it. I make sure it's strong enough.
Well, and that's what other makers have had issues with before. So like, um, are you familiar with like the Gracely Bates?
Yeah, I've just followed their Instagram.
Yeah. So he has the finesse skill, and then
Mm-hmm.
he recently redid some of the molding where the tail section is a little bit thicker because I know other people are having issues with breaking that tail section. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you are really like looking at glides, especially um, resin made glides, you'll notice like the tail section is a little bit flared out, is a little bit thicker, just because people do have some of those issues. Because yeah, that's smaller point. It's gonna potentially break, especially
Right.
if you like bounce it off a dock or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have not had one of these lures break since very early on when I was just basically making them for myself. I quickly learned, you just gotta you can't add too much. You have to have the right mixture. You have to have the right humidity when you're pouring it, so you don't get air into the resin. There's a lot that people don't think about that goes into making a lure and making it perfect every time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like the same with painting. Like if you're painting when it's really humid and you don't have some place like climate controlled or anything like that, you run into issues with the paint adhering. You run into issues with your clear coat, um,
Yeah.
and like also with painting, depending on like what kind of mold release you're using. If you don't really wash up your baits, you can run into paint not
Yeah.
adhering to your baits either.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's just so many factors
Yeah,
into it, and everybody's got their own techniques of how they makes all swim bait makers do it differently, and you just gotta put in the time to make it work for yourself because no one no one's techniques if they told you them, which they're probably not, are gonna work
yeah.
for you.
Well, exactly. And then, some people are. So your tiny glide's like $45, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so like $45, you're getting this really awesome lure, but still, people are like, oh, I would never spend that much on a lure, and it's like that's okay. Like, I will spend that much on a lure and go out and catch. I caught that tiger trout. Never caught one before,
Mhm.
and like I worth $45 to me every
Sure.
time to like catch something different like that.
Yeah. And the thing is, if I could charge $10, I would. Resin baits are very hard to make. I I don't buy a lot of expensive lures, but there was I buy lures that work for me.
Mhm.
So, I will buy everything from a 99-cent hair jig in a store to a 110. Um, and if I think something else that is more expensive is going to work for me, I would buy that too. And basically, I just saw there was a gap in the market.
Mhm.
There wasn't a glide bait that's this size that worked this way, and that's what needed to be filled, and the price came second, honestly. Just
Well, yeah, and like putting value on your time is hard because
yeah,
cost of materials it's easy to figure out, but it's like these do take a lot of time to make. This isn't something that you can make, you know, hundreds and hundreds in an afternoon like at a factory. Like,
hmm
so there's a lot of steps to it. It's very involved. It's you making it in your workshop, in your little work
yeah,
area. So you have to put value to your time. And like Aaron, do you do this full time or do you have?
I do. Yeah, I do it full time. Um, I am sometimes difficult because I'm 23. I don't have a ton of savings, and you have to invest a lot into
Mm-hmm.
designing and perfecting and producing a lure. Um, at the same time, it feels like the perfect time for me to do it because I don't have a family to take care of or anything. So
Yeah,
I can put my time into fishing lures only.
yeah. And this is something that like you're building up. You're coming. You say you're designing new things. You're coming out with new things. You got
Mm-hmm.
the new swimmer coming out, and yeah, this is like I said, this is the perfect time to do it. And the fact that you've invested like a lot of time and resources into this already, because I know going to Row Innovations is not cheap, and so that just shows that you're all in already. The
Oh
fact
yeah.
that you're getting this, like, did you get it like 3D scanned and like symmetrical as well? Did they do that?
Yeah, I got the whole refinement done. It turned out like I was expecting it to turn out well because I know
Mhm.
their work. It turned out better than I could have possibly expected on so many levels for both baits, the glide and the swimmer.
Mhm.
I just I can't speak highly enough about them. If um and they take care of you too. Like
Mhm.
I can I can email them and they will get me whatever I need. I can say I'm not happy with this one thing
Mhm.
and they will fix it. And I mean, that's such a unique thing I think in business today, and that's definitely it's an inspiration to me because that's how I want to run my business. And if you come to me and say I don't like this bait, or this lure broke on my second cast, or whatever, I'm gonna take care of that because you're buying a $45 lure. You should get everything you can out of that bait.
Oh, for sure. And like it's just like good customer service and a good like business model to have is especially like with something like this, you're not buying something from like Amazon or whatever
Mm-hmm.
where you don't like it's not personable versus this is more of a personable
Yeah,
thing cuz like if you're watching this podcast, you see Aaron, and then like you're like I fish his bait, like you
yeah,
know, and a lot of people will refer. So like in this like big swim bait world, a lot of people will be like, oh, Kyle from Throwback or Kyle from Gracely Baits, or they'll be like, Caesar from Toxic Baits. It's like there's faces and there's like people behind that brand.
yeah. That's something that's so cool to me.
Hmm.
That's something that I love so much, is be able to see who designed it and why, and all that, and be able to you know follow them, and what they do, and their family life or whatever. That's what's really cool. Like it feels like if you're buying a bait, you're actually making a difference. You're doing something good.
Yeah, well, it's like Kyle from Throwback Baits.
Hmm.
So like I have one of his wake walkers, and they have there's like the knockoff ABS plastic
Yeah,
wake walker like blank that you can get, or some painters will paint them, and I'm just like that's kind of to me that's really scummy because I'm like that's Kyle has like 5 kids. That's taking
I
food off
know,
his kids'
I know.
table.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that I don't know how people can lack the moral. Just I don't know. I can't imagine trying to benefit off of somebody else's design or idea or anything.
For sure.
Um, part of part of making lures is we have a really difficult thing going on in the industry where it's getting really saturated
Yeah.
in a lot of different ways, with lures, with tournament fishing. I remember, there used to be one tournament trail, now there's 12. Um, Not really, but
It
you know what
feels
I
like
mean.
that.
Yeah. um, it's getting so saturated to the point where it it's kind of taken away from what's you know the good, what's good, and what's, I don't know. It's and I can't say I'm mad at anybody for taking the initiative to try to make a living for themselves, even if it's copying another lure. But real ideas come from when you go out and go fishing,
Hmm.
and when you know you're using the lures that you're using, and then you decide, I need something different. I need something that works this way. I need this lure in this situation here, and it doesn't exist, so I need to create it. That's when lures are actually created. And then if you're looking online and you see a bait that looks cool and you copy it because it looks cool and you want to profit off of it, that's not how it should work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So, Aaron, with Arab Baits, what are your
Mhm.
future goals for you and the company?
Um, well, it's like I say, it's just the beginning. Um, right now, I work in a basement.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have a real shop, someplace with more space. I have, I would like to be able to produce an amount of lures that basically at least my site is stocked all the time. I think one of the important things is when you're buying a lure, if you're buying a, if you're a serious fisherman or if you're a tournament fisherman, you go out and buy a lure and you enjoy it and then you lose it, you need to be able to go and buy another one. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is incredibly important to me in my fishing, and that's pretty much my main goal for production is being able to have a constant supply of these baits at all times. Get rid of the drops altogether. I don't like that at all. Um, and uh, to to create a ton of new unique lures. I mean, I just came out with a new one, and I have designs for three or four more that are just as unique.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are swim baits, and some of them are not. Um, I would, I don't know, I would like to keep all my swim baits made right here in the United States by me in my shop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's that's kind of my goal. I it's definitely a career for me. I'm not stopping
Yeah.
anytime soon. It's like this is it. I'm not. Um, I actually I I finished high school in 11th grade. I dropped out. I didn't go to college. I worked on a farm for a while. I worked as a dishwasher. I'm just into fishing. That's what I love to do. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
good at making lures. Um, this is it, you know.
Well, and you can tell like this is something you're really into. You like there's a lot of thought going into designing these lures
Hmm.
because like when I first got this and I was like looking, I was like really looking over it, because I have like not a lot, but I got a few resin baits from like builders, and then you know like doing a little bit of resin pouring and experimenting myself. I'm like was really looking it over, and I'm like, oh, there's these little like pinholes. I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's something with how the molds poured or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But like hearing you and like hearing about the tungsten weights that you can put in these pinholes, just like just a lot of thought going into the design of everything. Like, and that's so like that little system is way different than what a lot of other like glide bait makers have for, adding weight
Yeah.
to their baits. So like just something, and it's not going to take a ton of like weight to get this to sink even faster, especially
Right.
using tungsten. That's
Yeah.
it's really cool though.
I- yeah. Basically, I just I try to do what I want to I something I want for myself, and I know that other makers just do different sink rates and stuff. I see that a lot. But if you're buying, you know, one bait, I personally would want all my baits to be able to do the same. If I'm buying five baits, I want to be able to do the same thing with all five baits versus have to deal with, one that sinks quickly or slowly or.
Mhm.
So having a little accessory that's, easy to produce and makes your bait move differently and or or sink differently. I think it was just something that needed to happen, and I haven't really seen it in a resin glide bait, or a resin swim bait at all. So I'm really excited about it, just because it's kind of something unique, and uh, I think people will be kind of impressed with that.
Yeah. And so like you designed this to like slow sink, but our water around here, especially like trout waters, stay generally are a lot colder
Mm-hmm.
than some of our other bodies of water. So when I was first throwing this and like fishing with it, well, my girlfriend was with me and I was fishing it. I'm like, this thing is so fucking cool. I'm so glad I bought this. And I was like, so you're saying it like sinks slow, but with our cold water, it sinks pretty at a pretty good clip already. But with some of our deeper water, just having that to be able to sink down,
Mm-hmm.
get it down to that like 20 feet to where I can work it for those trout, to where they don't have to put in as much effort coming up to the bait.
Yeah,
Like that's gonna be killer, dude.
I agree. I mean, it was a game changer when I was testing this out. I really fish it in a lot of very shallow water. Like I'll fish it in a foot of water in creeks and stuff. But when I was testing out the weights, I'm like, all right, I gotta go deep. So I went till I was out in, you know, I went found some grass and about 10 foot of water and just counted it down and couple twitches and just catching perch on it and stuff. Um, it really does make a difference. So one thing about it is most swim baits, big swim baits, sit completely horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
This bait sits with a very slight nose down, sort of like a jerk bait.
Okay.
When you add a weight just to the front, you're tilting the nose down even further, which means that it cuts down in the water quicker because the nose is cutting through quicker. So you don't have to add a lot of weight to get it to dive deeper. You just have to add it in the right spot
Mm-hmm.
to be able to very slightly change the angle and get it to dive differently.
And then, so like with your bait, what kind of setup are you throwing it on? Well, how do you like to throw it?
I use the rod is a Cashin 7 foot light
Mm-hmm.
BFS rod. It's the perfect tiny glide rod. It's like it's designed for it. It's what I use all any kind of I use the I also fish the Euro tackle, the Z cranker a
Mm-hmm.
ton. I caught my PB brown trout last year. It was like a 7 pound brown trout in a tiny little creek on that lure. I use that with it. I mean, it handles these ultralight treble hooks so well, but it also has enough power to be able to, you know, land a fish like that in a small area. Um, I I use the Sue Genius BFS reel. I've went back and forth between a ton of BFS
With the
reels. The Dark Wolf and the Genius are my favorite.
yeah, I got a Genius,
And
and yeah, that's like the 8 1 to 1 gear ratio is like perfect for stream fishing.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I've used them all. Those are the ones I like. Um, I haven't used the high end ones. I shouldn't say that. I've used the highest end I've used is the Corrado or the Arc.
Yeah.
Um, they're great reels. I would use them for other things, especially the Corrado. It's just a little beefier.
Mm-hmm.
You can do like really light jigs on it and stuff. I love H&H Customs makes a tiny buzz bait. I love throwing a little tiny buzz bait with that reel.
Mm-hmm.
This like 10 pound braid. It's perfect.
Yeah. Uh, so on your swimmer video, Is that you throwing the swimmer, or do you have somebody else do it? Because I think you like on the video, it's somebody was using like a was it the Nako reel?
I no, that must have been another video. I just have the. I've never had one of those.
Unless I'm just like tripping.
I do all the videos, but I don't think I've ever owned one of those.
Oh, different video then. I get a lot of fishing content.
Yeah, no
Uh,
worries. Yeah, my explore page is full of it.
yeah. So like how I've been throwing your bait is so I got the Tersoya Noya Genius,
Yeah.
which is the Dark Wolf Ultra like
Hmm.
uh reel, these AliExpress BFS reels. But really been digging this reel, so I got this lined up. I got uh 10-pound braid,
Okay.
and I have that to uh 4-pound fluorocarbon, which is like pretty similar diameter. Dude, for my fishing trip uh this past Friday, I was trying to tie an FG knot. I don't know if you're familiar,
Hmm.
but I was sitting there for like an hour just like trying to tie this FG knot. I've never done one before. And with like really thin diameter, it just like, oh, it wasn't even working. So I was like, F it. I did a double uni, have not had issues. Because I was worried so this rod is the rod that I built and I put micro guides on it. So I
Okay.
got wind grips, short little split grip, but this is a mud hole tackle rod. This is an MHX 6 foot ultralight. It throws like 1/32 to like a quarter ounce lures, and it's a mod fast action. But it's been handling the tiny Clyde really well. If I was to make another BFS rod, I would probably try to make it like truer to uh, kind of like how Japanese guys fish with really like whippy fiberglass
Yeah.
rods.
Yeah. That's something I. There's kind of different levels of BFS. And uh, that is something that's really interesting to me. When you go even smaller, and even I mean, people are casting like literally flies on
Mm-hmm.
some of this BFS stuff, which is really cool. Um, there's different levels for sure, and it's really unique because I mean I fish when I fish in the fall I fish a float with a fly under it for trout, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all winter long. I've been thinking about I could probably get a BFS setup that actually throws something that's that small, and it would work it like an actual jig on the bottom versus just fishing it under a float.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just such a unique thing that's fun to play around with.
Yeah, and it's like it's getting more and more popular.
Hmm.
Um, Still not. I don't know. I think I'm the only person in this area. I've never. All the times I go out, people are either with their spinning rod or like fly fishing. I went and talked. I was at a tackle shop not long ago in my area. I was like, oh yeah, I like throw a lot of BFS. And the old guy that runs the shop, I was just like, are you familiar? He's like, no. I'm like, it's like I could have sat there for an hour like explaining it to him. I was
Hmm.
like, oh, it's ultralight fishing on a bait casting setup. I was
Yeah,
like, it's the simplest way I can tell you. I could have gone in. It's like originate in Japan and like yada 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 and all this other stuff, but dude, it's just a super cool way to fish.
that I'll tell you what, the fly fishermen look at me so weird when I'm using a bait caster out there. But yeah, it's I mean, there's something about using a tiny little crankbait or swim bait or something, and having that trout chase it down versus just having them eat a tiny little fly on the bottom because they will do that. They're predators.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and then that's how a lot of my trout fishing is I'm using, I tell people this, it's like my BFS trout fishing is even when I was just like using my spinning ultralight, I was like, my trout fishing is downsized bass stuff. I'm using like little paddle tails, little,
absolutely.
yeah, little jerk baits, stuff like that. And then this was something really cool. I got a lot of good follows. I think when the fish are a little more aggressive in the fall, it'll be better. And I hooked into one, but wasn't able to land it. But there's this guy on Instagram, and he makes these BFS
Oh yeah.
A rigs. I don't know what he calls them, but they're super cool. They're super light too. I mean, your wires are really strong,
Hmm.
but I bought two of these. I lost one, which was if you're not prepared to lose like something, don't even buy it.
Right.
And especially when you're getting into small bait companies making stuff by hand, your price goes up on stuff. So this was really cool to throw around. I think, yeah, fall time will be a lot better. My biggest worry about this is like a pike hitting it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you what. I'm so surprised I haven't lost a tiny glide to a pike yet.
Yeah.
And I I've definitely caught a couple, uh, but for some reason I haven't. Um, yeah, that's the tough part. Um, God, that little A rig looked like it would just be a perfect crappie, like suspended crappie,
Mm-hmm.
just rolling it through there. That that looked awesome. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm very careful when casting my lures. I guess I just fished enough where if I'm casting in a place where I can't go get my lure, I take precautions. I don't lose a lot of lures,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that people do, which is why you need to be able to produce a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And like if I lost this tiny glide, yeah, I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna be like, oh, crap, but I bought two. So just in case. And I'll be able to
Yeah.
eventually get more. Um, so with your bait, do you have a lot of people sending you catches with it, stuff like that? Because like I said, I've seen peacock bass caught on this lure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do. I get people send me a bunch of catches. I've shipped to Australia. I've shipped to the UK. That's something that's really cool to me. Just thinking somebody's using my tiny little lure in Australia to catch whatever the hell they're catching.
Dude, the European perch on this lure would be so crazy. Oh man, that's a bucket list fish for me. It's those huge like 2-3 pound
Yeah,
perch.
yeah. That sounds awesome. I love looking. I haven't fished much out of the United States or Canada, but looking at the kind of fish that people catch in different places, I'm gonna have to take some trips soon
Mm-hmm.
because I just scratching the surface, catching trout and smallmouth over here. Um, yeah.
So like, what would be some of like your bucket list fish species to catch?
Well, definitely peacock bass. I'm in contact with a guide in Florida that you know uses the tiny glide on his guide trips and catches lots of peacock bass. I don't I don't know. I could. honestly, anywhere I could take, you know, I feel like the hype goes to all like the big fish. Like when you're watching, fishing videos, you know, I've watched so many videos of people going to different places and catching tarpon and GT, and well, I just want to. I don't care if it's a little puddle. If there's a little fish in there, I want to see what it is, and that's something that's really cool to me. I just want to be able to admire different species, and every fish is cool. Um, so that's kind of how I feel about fishing. It's not always about. Well, for me, it's just not about. I love catching big fish, but it's just uh, where they are basically. It's
Hmm.
what I enjoy.
Do you get like a lot of saltwater guys like sending you stuff? Like,
I think people fish them in salt water. I've had people ask, can they hold up in salt water? And everything's uh, saltwater grade, all the hardware and everything. So I don't see why not. I feel like you might lose it immediately if you fish it in salt water because the fish are probably a lot stronger. Just
mm-hmm.
fishing it on. I mean, I fish it on 5 pound line a lot. That's what it. I think that's a you get a good action out of a really light line. So if you bump it up too much, it probably won't work really the same.
Yeah, I've fished this on 4 now, and I fished it on 6 pound fluoro, and
Mm.
that handles it. Both of those handled it really well.
Yeah, yeah. I suggest 4 to 6, and I land right in the middle. The Sunline FC Sniper 5 pound is just
Mm-hmm.
perfect for it. You can launch it, but it's just a little heavier than 4, so you're not like um, I don't know. I think it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. So like, what do you find is the hardest thing about running a small business?
Um, Honestly, I think the hardest part for me, and it's probably due to my age, is just the schedule and the discipline to be able to, I mean, choose your schedule. And I've worked for months and months in a row without literally not taking a single day off, and working 12, 14 hours a day. And that is not something anybody should do. And you probably also shouldn't be taking 4 days off a week just to
Mm-hmm.
go fishing and do stuff. Um, so it's hard. The part of the beauty of having your own business is being able to, if you want to go fishing on Monday and work Saturday, because that's when people are, the other people are um, off the water. That's something you can do, but you also gotta make sure you put in the time. And I think that part of I've never actually had a full-time job other than this, so that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that it's definitely been a lesson for me, is just how you spend your time working, or not overworking yourself or not working too little.
Yeah, just finding that happy in between of having like a good schedule. But yeah, that's perfect. Like being able to fish on Monday, but then it's
Hmm.
like maybe I'll work on Saturday now, and
Yeah.
having a good balance so you're not burning yourself out, but then also you're not
Mhm.
fishing 4 days a week and then you have three to try to catch up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you gotta be. I mean, soon the salmon are gonna be in the creeks, and I'm not gonna want to be inside. I want to be out there, but I also just released a new product, so I gotta go make baits, you know.
So with your next drop, how is that gonna work? Are you gonna have a mix of like the swimmers and the tiny glides, or are you gonna just strictly do maybe one or the other per drop?
I'll probably have a mix. Honestly, I don't plan it out that much. People ask me like, when is the next drop gonna be? There's no way to plan it for me
Mm-hmm.
specifically. I don't have enough experience to say, oh, I can get this amount done in this amount of time. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've had so many times things go wrong, and you need to start over, or you need to take a week to fine tune one of the steps to make things go smoother. A general rule I always say to myself in my head is, for making fishing lures, it is going to take twice as long as you think it's going to take to reach a goal. Literally twice as long.
That's like
Um,
that's like with road construction. People are like, "Oh, it's scheduled to end this time. We'll tack on like another half a year to that."
yeah, yeah. So I'm so hesitant. I used to say it back when I was just beginning. I used to be like, oh, we're gonna have lures this fall, and then a million things would go wrong, and I'd be like, well, yeah, we got to push that back 3 months, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's all gonna go wrong at some point. You just gotta. It's hard. You gotta figure out every little thing, and it's not for the faint of heart, because when you're doing something that loses you thousands of dollars if you do something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and you really could use that money in your bank account, that sucks. That's like
Mm-hmm.
something that weighs on the mind a lot. So yeah, it can be tough, but it's also really really a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and like you're doing this full time. You're really young and just all in on fishing and making
Mhm.
baits right now. That's just, dude, that's fucking awesome. Uh, how'd you come up with the name though, Era Baits?
um, I honestly don't really know. I I think I saw. I used to work at Orvis back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like into fly fishing. I saw some sort of like fly that was called like an Era fly or something. I don't know. So that kind of was in my brain, and then I was like, oh, Era Baits is kind of like a simple, cool name, and it kind of shows that it's what it is. Just in it's kind of a new thing, like a new era of fishing, which is something that's kind of cool. And then as for the tiny glide, it just made sense. It's a tiny
Yeah.
glide. I like that because fishing lures are so often named something so crazy, with
Yeah.
letters and numbers, and just like it's just a tiny little glide bait. That's all it is.
Yeah, and then the paint jobs just have like weird ass names too. But like that's everywhere across the fishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like my when I was fishing with my buddy this past Friday and his kid, it's like, oh, what do you got on? It's like, oh, well, I got a chubby. I'm throwing a chubby Chernobyl, and I'm like, how do you come up with that name? It's just like just out there.
Yeah, my brother loves when I say my brother asked me what I'm fishing, and I'm like, oh, I was fishing a whopper plopper today. And he's like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Like it's there's so many weird names for fishing lures, but
oh, yeah.
it is fun though. I like the creativity. It just kind of worked for mine, just to show what it is.
Hmm.
The name, I think.
So do you have any like plans for coming out with like any T-shirts, hats, things like that?
Yeah, I do. I've definitely thought about everything. I feel like it's just it's hard. You want to do everything. I'm the type of
Hmm.
person who wants everything done yesterday
Hmm.
or several months ago. So it's hard to keep, it was hard to figure out you just got to be happy with what you got going right now. And, you know, I want to do place an order for some cool hats and stuff, but it might have to wait a couple months. Um, hats aren't cheap. Nice custom
No,
hats, not
no,
cheap.
dude.
Um, I personally would like to. I would like to be more than just someone making money off of fishing lures. I want my lures. I want to prove myself and my lures to the to the people who are leading the industry. Like the people who inspire me, like Throwback Baits, that are like I want to prove that my lures, can hang with that type of lure because I know that they make one of the best in the world. Um, so I do spend a lot of time, probably more than I should, on designing and just perfecting every little aspect versus just trying to bang out as many lures as I can. Like I want each one to be perfect and each design to be perfect. And Jake from Raw Innovations could tell you I don't take these lightly. If
Yeah.
one little thing is off a little bit, I'm like, yeah, we got to readjust.
No, that's a great way to be though, especially you want something out there that's gonna be you know perfect for who's gonna fish it because like it's like me. I first got this bait, scrutinizing it, going over
Mhm.
how it looks and everything, and then I went out and fished it, and I was like just beside myself. I was like, I'm so glad I bought this. I know it's gonna get bit. Like the first time I seriously fished it, I was getting bit on it. Like I was very very happy with the bait.
That's awesome. That's the thing I like hearing most because I know $45 is a lot of money, especially for a lure, and
Hmm.
just to hear that it's worth it to people and that they enjoy it so much is that's what really just gets me. That's why I honestly do it. I could There's other ways to make money, but that's what I like doing.
Yeah. Um, I don't remember who said this, but I remember hearing somebody say that like every swim bait fisherman, like everybody that likes to throw big baits, has that little soft spot in them to where they would love throwing like little tiny baits like this. I almost wonder if it'd be like advantageous to you to go to like a swim bait universe gathering and have your tiny glides because this is a swim bait.
Yeah, for
It's just a
sure.
BFS swim bait. Oh, you'd have to talk to like one of the big guys over there, like on Swim Bait Universe, like Wayne
Right.
Campbell or somebody.
Yeah, I've heard people have told me about that stuff. See, I'm not really into swim baits a lot at all, and
Mm-hmm.
I probably should be. Like, I know there's a Facebook page. I don't even have Facebook, so I don't follow the page or whatever. Um, I know I should. It would be great for my business and my brand, and I probably will at some point. But it's just not really about that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just I'd rather be just designing lures, and the people that see it and enjoy it. Like I say, they sell out quickly, so I'm not you know trying to buy. I'm not trying to get a bunch of convince people to buy them. I have my little following, and I'm happy with that for now, as long as I can be making money. So um, yeah, really, I just wanna. I know it'll get out there more in time, and I'll get into that stuff. But right now, it's about um, the designing them and putting in that sort of work into the business.
For sure. And especially so like I seen this from uh like I first seen your bait from like raw fishing, and then I followed you and I was just
Hmm.
waiting for like the perfect drop for me to get on.
Hmm.
And you know, the stars just aligned. Um I was able to get in on it.
Hmm.
But yeah, just having your bait in like influential hands like that like is super great for you too.
Yeah,
Cuz
that's
I
awesome.
yeah, cuz I wouldn't have known about it if I hadn't seen it somewhere else on social media.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, that was hugely beneficial, and I can't thank Raw Fishing enough, Jimmy, for doing that for me. Just that one video got so much exposure that it was incredible. And I really appreciate that they take the time to show a small business lure when I'm sure they're fielding messages of like, I can't even get this lure. Why are you posting about it?
Mhm.
Just because it's something that, I designed, and am still working on, still something I'm still, working on production and all that stuff. Um, that's that's really amazing to me, and I mean, I think that fishing has a lot of cool, really cool people involved, and to just be able to, I mean, make connections with those people is something I've always really wanted to be able to do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, shoot, dude, we've been going at this for a while, about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But so just like wrapping it up and everything, um, you already were saying like some of the things you got coming down the pipeline. Do you happen to know when your next drop would be, or is like
Um,
still kind of planning it out?
I think it's probably going to be early October at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's about when I'm hoping. I probably will have mostly swimmers, maybe um, a couple glides as well for those who have been wanting them. Um, yeah, I mean, it's about we're getting to the point where we're going to have a lot more drops and um, a lot more baits in each drop, just
Mm-hmm.
because I've been doing a lot of designing and a lot of other stuff, a lot of perfecting each little step of the process, and I'm getting really good at it. So um, I think probably the next one will be in October or something though.
No, that'll be awesome, dude. And then where can people find you at?
Um, well, the best way, if you want to ever talk to me, I love talking fishing, is Airbaits Instagram. I don't have any sort of personal Instagram or um, Facebook or anything, but just message Airbaits, and if you're asking me when the next restock is, I might not reply. But if you're asking me something about the bait or something about fishing in general, or just want to talk fishing, I probably will. So I try to get to as many as I can. I'm not an outgoing person, and my messages are literally so full all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I will. That's probably the best way to reach me, though.
No, dude, that's perfect. Well, dude, Aaron, I'm so happy you came on the podcast. Like, is kind of what I wanted this podcast to be all about is having bait makers, like painters, builders, everything like that. Just people
Hmm.
from the industry, like small time people to talk to, have conversations with. Especially, a lot of the people I talk to, it's like I'm probably gonna try to get your bait anyway, one way or the
Yeah.
other, dude.
Yeah, for
But
sure. Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's been really fun. Um, I enjoy talking about fishing a lot, and I'll have more lures coming out soon. So I'll be happy to come back at any time.
all right, perfect, man. Well, heck, you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too, man.